The phone rang once
Take it
before
and go.
Aya busy snatched
Thank
it
you
up,
so
already
much.
smiling. It's done, she whispered into the receiver, pressing her back against the bedroom door as if the wood itself might betray her. By morning she will be at the airport, and I will be here, drinking my zobo in peace. She laughed, low and satisfied, the laugh of a woman who believed she had already won. Down the corridor, in a room with one small window and a mattress that sagged in the middle, Fola said Adeyemi was still asleep, her hand resting on an empty space beside her pillow where a leather folder used to be. She did not know yet. She would not know for 6 more hours. But by the time the sun came up over the Adeyemi compound, everything she had built for 3 years would be gone, and the woman who took it would already be gone too. This is the story of Fola. The rooster had not yet decided to crow when Fola opened her eyes. That was how it had always been for her, long before anyone in the house was awake, long before the water tanker arrived at the junction, long before the smell of akara began to drift from the woman who fried by the roadside. She rose, folded her wrapper, and moved through the compound the way she moved through everything else in her life, quietly, without waiting to be noticed. She swept the veranda. She fetched water before the queue could form. She had done this every day since she was a girl, and she had never once complained, not because she didn't feel the weight of it, but because complaining had never once made the weight lighter. Her mother had died when Fola was 11. A fever that came during the Harmattan and refused to leave. Her father, Alhaji Musa Adeyemi, was a gentleman, but gentleness and courage are not always the same thing, and 2 years after the funeral he married a widow from Ijibu named Bizi, a woman with sharp eyes and a daughter of her own. He told himself he was giving his daughter a mother. What he gave her, without ever meaning to, was an education in silence. Fola, you left flour on the counter again. I will clean it, Ma. Your mate Bukky is thinking about her future. Dubai. London. Big plans. And you? Small chops and event decorations. Is that a future? It is what I have, Ma. Aya Busy never waited for an answer. She said what she came to say and walked away before the words could be questioned, the way a person drops a stone into still water and leaves before the ripples reach the edge. Bukky was nothing like her mother in temperament, though she had inherited the same instinct for taking up space. She was loud in the way that made people forgive her easily, warm in the way that made a room feel alive the moment she entered it. She had started 3 different businesses and abandoned all 3 before they could test her patience. She had a boyfriend in Warri who sent her money that disappeared before it could be counted. At night, lying on her side of the room they shared, she would talk about leaving Nigeria the way other girls talked about falling in love. Fola, are you even listening to me? I'm listening, Bukky. I said I cannot stay in this country. There is nothing here for people like us. That's all you have. I am talking about my life and you are MMING me. What do you want me to say? Something. Anything. You just sit there planning your little parties like that is enough for anybody. It is enough for me. Bukky rolled her eyes so hard Fola could hear it in her voice. You and this your seriousness. One day life will teach you that work is not everything. Fola said nothing. She closed her notebook, the one where she wrote every order, every deposit, every naira she had saved since she was 16 selling puff-puff outside her father's gate, and she turned off the torch by her bed. In the dark, she was already planning tomorrow. That was the part of her no one in that house could touch. She had built her small events business from almost nothing, decorations for birthday parties first, then engagement ceremonies, then full weddings on a budget, learning fabric and flowers and lighting the way some people learn a language, out of necessity and repetition. She kept her savings in a tin Milo container hidden inside a bag of rice in the storeroom, because that was the only place in that house that had ever felt like it belonged to her alone. She had done a course in event management on weekends, told no one, simply did it, the way she did everything. The neighbors noticed, even if her stepmother pretended not to. Mama Teo stopped her at the borehole one afternoon, hands on her hips, smiling the smile of a woman genuinely pleased with someone else's child. Fola. Fola, I hear your decorations at the Bello wedding were the talk of the whole street. By God's grace, Ma. You will go far, my daughter. Very far. Your mother would be proud, wherever she is. Thank you, Ma. Word like that always found its way back to Aya Busy, and every time it did, it landed in her chest like an insult aimed directly at her, because the girl being praised was not her own. That evening at dinner, Alhaji Musa mentioned, without thinking of the weight of it, that the boss had spoken well of Fola at the last meeting. They say she has good hands, that people are calling her name all over town. Silence settled over the table like dust. Aya Busy produced her practice smile, the one she kept folded and ready for exactly this kind of moment. Yes. Fola tries. Not we are proud. Not she is doing well. Just enough words to seem decent, and not one syllable more. Fola ate quietly and said nothing, because she had learned that nothing she said in that house was ever heard the way she meant it. Alhaji Musa believed his home was in order because the floors were clean and the soup was hot and no one was shouting. He did not see how his wife's voice changed the moment he left a room. He did not notice that his daughter's plate had gotten smaller over the years while Bukky's had grown. A man who avoids every quarrel does not achieve peace. He only postpones the war and lets someone else pay the interest. 3 years. That is how long it took Fola to build the file that would change her life, or so she believed at the time. 3 years of saving from her events business, of visiting the travel consultancy office on Allen Avenue so often the receptionist stopped asking her name, of filling forms she barely understood and returning to fill them again, of gathering bank statements and reference letters and passport photographs and locking them inside a leather folder she guarded the way other people guard their own heartbeat. It was not simply a visa. It was a hospitality and event styling apprenticeship in Dubai, arranged through a legitimate trade program that a fabric supplier had told her about, an opportunity to train under some of the biggest event companies in the Gulf and return home with skills no one on her street possessed. When the acceptance letter finally arrived, she read it 4 times standing in the doorway before she allowed herself to cry. She made the mistake, if it can even be called a mistake, of bringing the news home. Not because she was careless, but because some small stubborn part of her still believed that good news belonged first to family, even a family that had rarely given her reason to believe it. Papa, look. My apprenticeship. I have been accepted. Dubai. It came through. Alhaji Musa took the letter with both hands, his eyes filling before he could stop them. Fola, this is a great thing. A very great thing. 3 years, Papa. 3 years I have been working toward this. Your mother is smiling somewhere tonight. I know it. She held on to those words the way a drowning person holds onto driftwood. Then Aya Busy appeared in the doorway, arms folded, and asked in a voice smooth as oil what all the excitement was about. Fola has been accepted into a program abroad. Dubai. She is going to train in event styling. Oh. Congratulations, Fola. The smile did not travel anywhere near her eyes, but Fola was too full of joy that night to notice, and joy, it turns out, is sometimes the very thing that leaves you unguarded. That night she hid the folder inside the rice sack in the storeroom, the same place it had always been safe. By morning, the sack was empty, and so was Bukky's side of the room, and so, when she ran into the parlor with her chest heaving, was her stepmother's expression of anything resembling guilt. Where is Bukky? Where are my documents? Lower your voice in my parlor. My folder is gone. Everything, gone. Where is my sister? Bukky has traveled. That is all I know. Traveled with my papers. With my acceptance letter. You gave them to her. You gave her my life. Aya Busy rose slowly, her voice dropping into something colder than Fola had ever heard from her. Watch your mouth in this house. You are not in the market. Papa. Papa, come out here. Alhaji Musa appeared in the doorway, blinking sleep from his eyes, and listened as his daughter laid out everything, the empty sack, the empty room, Bukky gone without a single word. He turned to his wife. Busy. Do you know anything about this? Me. This girl has been jealous of my daughter since the day I married into this house. Bukky received her own opportunity and she traveled. Why must everything always become about Fola? Are you certain the documents were there last night, Fola? Papa, I hid them myself. I am certain. Or perhaps in your excitement you misplaced them, and now you want to accuse an innocent child. He said nothing further. And that silence, more than any accusation, was the loudest thing in the room. The compound heard everything, because compounds always do. By afternoon the story had changed shape 3 times in the mouths of the neighbors. By evening it had traveled 2 streets over. Old Adebayo shook his head at his gate. That Fola girl. She should have kept her business quiet. You don't bring good news into a house full of envy. Mama Teo, at least, held Fola's hand that evening and told her she believed her, that God did not sleep, even when men closed their eyes to injustice, but belief without action changes nothing when the person standing in front of you controls the only door out. That night Fola sat alone outside with nothing in her hands. No notebook, no folder, no plan. Just the enormous, silent weight of a future that had been taken from her while she slept. She could have gone to the police. She could have gone to the elders. She had already seen, in one single day, exactly how quickly sympathy turns into distance, how fast a compound's pity becomes a wall keeping you out rather than a hand pulling you in. So she made herself a promise instead, quietly, the way she made every important decision in her life. This will not be the end of my story. She did not say it to anyone. She said it to the dark, to herself, the way people make the only kind of promise that actually survives the morning. Nobody claps for a person who is starting over. They tell you about resilience afterward, once you've already climbed out, but nobody tells you what it costs to walk through a market where people who used to greet you with both hands suddenly find something else to look at. Fola learned that lesson in real time. She packed one bag and left the compound on a Tuesday morning, and her father stood at the doorframe with the face of a man who knew he had failed and had no words large enough to fix it. Her stepmother did not even come to the window. She rented a single room off Ogonlana Drive, one window, a landlady named Aya Sigan who had seen enough of life to mind her own business, and she took the only job she could find, sweeping floors and folding tablecloths at an event decoration company owned by a stout, no-nonsense woman named Alhaja Ronk. Her first week she earned barely enough for transport. The second week, Alhaja Ronk caught her rearranging a flower centerpiece that had been assembled wrong, quietly, without being asked, and moved her from sweeping to the design table. You have done this work before. A little, Ma. I used to plan small events myself. Small is not what my eyes are telling me. Show me what you can do with these flowers. Fola worked in silence while Alhaja Ronk watched without a word. When she finished, the older woman lifted the arrangement to the light and turned it slowly in her hands. Who taught you this? No one, Ma. I taught myself. I watched, I practiced, I made mistakes until I stopped making them. You have good hands. I will teach you the rest. That was the first door that opened for her since the night everything closed. But not every door in that new life was kind. She heard the whispers at the market one afternoon, 2 women from her old compound standing just behind her, voices lowered but not nearly low enough. You see that Fola? The one who used to boast about her Dubai program. Look at her now, pricing ribbons like an ordinary shop girl. If you cannot guard your own papers, life will teach you to guard them properly next time. I heard she accused her own stepsister of stealing. Imagine. Jealousy will not let some people rest. Fola kept her eyes on the ribbon in her hand. She asked the price. She paid. She left, and she took the long way home so that no one would see her face before she had rearranged it back into something steady. Meanwhile, in Dubai, Bukky was learning a lesson of her own, one nobody had warned her about, that opportunity without discipline is a weight far heavier than opportunity denied. She had arrived carrying Fola's documents, Fola's acceptance, and none of Fola's habits. The program's early mornings, its strict attendance, its endless practical assessments, felt to her like punishment rather than privilege. She began missing sessions. She found people who made missing sessions feel like freedom instead of failure. The stipend meant for accommodation and training materials went toward things that had nothing to do with either. Within 4 months she had been quietly withdrawn from the program. She told her mother everything was fine. She found a room with 3 other Nigerian girls and began surviving one difficult day at a time, with nothing growing beneath her. Fola knew none of this. She had no time to wonder. She was building. Al-Hajjarong taught her everything: how to read a hall and know instantly what it needed, how to work with a client's budget without ever making them feel poor, how to make a single strand of fairy lights look like it cost 10 times what it did. After 8 months, Al-Hajjarong called her in before the shop opened one morning. "I have a big client. A chieftaincy ceremony. 200 guests. I want you to lead it. I will be there, but you will lead." "Yes, Ma. I can do it." "Good. Do not let your hands disappoint me." Her hands did not disappoint her. The ceremony was flawless. The photographs traveled across every phone in the client's family within a week, and by the following month 3 new clients had walked into Al-Hajjarong's shop asking specifically for the girl who did the chieftaincy decorations. They were not asking for Al-Hajjarong. They were asking for Fola. She did not celebrate loudly. She went home to her small room, sat on the edge of her bed, and allowed herself exactly one quiet moment of something that felt, cautiously, like proof. Then she picked up her notebook and planned the next job. 5 years is a long time. Long enough for a city to forget what it once whispered about you. Long enough for the very people who mocked you at the market to eventually need something only you can give them. Fola's business was called Adeyemi Events Now, a real storefront on Allen Avenue, 3 staff members under her, a waiting list 2 months long, suppliers who called her before she ever had to call them. Al-Hajjarong sat in the front row at the launch of the new office, eating small chops, watching the whole afternoon unfold with the calm satisfaction of someone who had known, long before anyone else, exactly where this was going. "You remember what I told you that first day? Do not let your hands disappoint me." They never did. Not once. "I am proud of you, my daughter." Bukky came back on a Tuesday, no warning, no phone call, just a taxi pulling up to the old family compound with a single bag and a face that had aged in ways that had nothing to do with years passing. Dubai had not been kind. When the program collapsed, she had spent 2 more years trying to hold herself together in a country that had no particular interest in helping her do it. Small jobs, borrowed money she couldn't repay, 3 different rooms in 2 years, the quiet shame of living a life that was never supposed to be hers until the weight of pretending finally became unbearable. She came home with nothing, and she came home knowing exactly why. Aya Busy had aged too. The compound felt smaller somehow. Old Adebayo had passed. Mama Teo had moved to her son's house in Ibadan. Alhaji Musa's niece gave him trouble now, and his eyes did not always focus on the television he still left running every evening. Within a week of Bukky's return, the money problems in that house could no longer be hidden behind pride. It was Aya Busy who finally made the decision to go, and it cost her more than she expected it to. They arrived on a Saturday morning. Fola was at her office reviewing supplier invoices with one of her staff when she heard the door chime. She looked up. Aya Busy stood in the doorway. Bukky stood slightly behind her, smaller than Fola remembered, eyes fixed on the floor, hands folded like someone waiting for a verdict she already knew. Fola set down her papers. She did not move toward them. She did not move away either. "We have come to see you, Fola." "I can see that. Sit down, if you like." She remained standing herself, not to appear powerful, simply because her hands needed something to hold on to, and the invoices were still on the table. Busy looked slowly around the office, the framed photograph of that very first chieftaincy job on the wall, the staff moving between clients, the sign outside with her stepdaughter's name printed in gold. Something crossed her face that was not quite guilt, but was close enough to it that she could not entirely hide it. "You have done well for yourself." "Thank you. We are not in a good position right now. Things have been very hard since Bukky returned. We need help. Financially. Just to find our feet again." The office went quiet. Outside, Allen Avenue moved the way it always did, okada's, music from a nearby shop, someone calling out prices, a city that had already forgotten every rumor it once carried about her. Fola looked at her stepmother, then at Bukky, who still had not raised her eyes, and then at the framed photograph on the wall. She thought about the rice sack, the empty space where the folder used to be, her father's silence, the whispers at the market, the single room of Ogonona Drive. Every night she had planned her comeback with no one watching and no one believing it would work. And then, deliberately, she let all of it go. Not for them. For herself. Because she had learned in 5 hard years that bitterness is a prison you build with your own hands and then volunteer to live inside. "I am not going to give you money." Busy's jaw tightened. "So you want to humiliate us? After everything? I did not invite you here, Ma. You came, and I'm speaking to you with more respect than this moment truly requires from me. Please hear what I am saying. What was done to me was wrong. You know it. I know it. The whole street knew it. But that is not why I built this place, and I will not write you a check as if money could fold up what happened and put it away somewhere quiet." "Fola." Bukky's voice, barely a whisper, still refusing to meet her eyes. "I am sorry." The office held that sentence for a long moment before anyone dared to move. "I believe you, Bukky." Bukky finally looked up, her eyes rimmed red. "It wasn't supposed to go this way. It doesn't matter now. What's done is done, and you have already lived through the consequences of it. I don't need to add anything more to what you're already carrying." Fola stood, smoothed the front of her blouse, and walked to the door, holding it open, not in anger, but with the quiet, settled energy of a woman who knew precisely where her boundaries stood and had already paid, in full, for every one of them. "I hope things get better for your family. I mean that. But I cannot be the one who fixes it. That chapter of my life is closed." "So that is it, then?" "That is it." Busy walked out first. Bukky followed, pausing once at the door to look back, at Fola, at the office, at the gold letters on the sign outside spelling out a name that had once meant nothing to anyone and now meant everything to the woman standing beneath it. Fola stood alone in her office for a long moment after they left. No tears. No anger. No triumph, even. Just the deep, settled stillness of a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side knowing exactly who she was and exactly what she had built with her own 2 hands. She picked her invoices back up, sat down at her desk, and kept walking, the way she always had, the way she always would. If you followed Fola's story all the way to the end, thank you for staying with her. Subscribe if our journey moved you, and don't leave yet. There's another story waiting for you right now, and it's just as worth your time.